We're gonna stuff all these Overland goodies in the back of this 392. Follow along. We've got a bunch of components laid out here on the floor, and they are all to maximize the utility of the cargo area of this 392 JL. I want to give you a quick overview of what we've got laying out here. First is the American Adventure Labs rear floor system. To that, we're going to bolt their slightly wider slider, and we're going to stack this Dometic fridge on top of that. Right next to me here is their tray, like storage shelf, and then we have their Tax tailgate system, which is a really neat place to mount an air compressor. The last thing I want to talk about is this battery. Of course, to make it all work, we've got a bunch of wire that we're going to route. We also have some Dynamat over there. I love how this stuff looks in the raw aluminum finish. Of course, we've got some steel bits that are powder coated black, but man, this is going to look absolutely awesome installed in the back of this 392. Todd's got the back of this thing stripped right now, and the first thing we're gonna do is get started with wiring. You can see we've got this Dometic 12-volt wiring. This is where you're gonna plug in the fridge or any other charger outlet, like the battery. So we'll probably have a battery charger going to it and the fridge. We've got some massive cable here, and that will be used for the air compressor, which is gonna be hidden inside that box. So let's get started. I'm eager for Todd to get into it. So we've got it all done. Todd did a fantastic job putting this thing all together. It's really a lot of fun to quote these and plan them in your head and then see Todd do such an excellent job getting it all together. I think the first thing I want to talk to Todd about is the American Adventure Labs tailgate piece, because there's a lot going on there. So we've hidden an air compressor in here. There's, of course, this Apex reel, a little Molly panel, a light with a button. What challenges did you run into installing this, routing wire, all that kind of stuff?
I'd say there weren't a lot of challenges. It actually went together very well. American Adventure Labs stuff is top notch.
Cool.
Compared to a lot of other things we've done. And everything was laid out very well, and it went pretty smooth. So
I know when I quoted the thing out, you can opt for a couple different things on this kit. There is an optional monitor here, which we chose not to go with. And you can get a electrical kit, which comes with some wiring.
Correct.
So talk us through like what you did with wiring, where you grounded the compressor, all that stuff.
So the ARB dual compressor comes with 2 sets of wires and 2 fuses because of the dual compressor, 1 wire and fuse for each motor.
Yep.
And the Adventure Labs kit came with 1 4-gauge wire, so we spliced both wires from the compressor into the 1 single 4-gauge wire and ran, so we only had to run 1 wire all the way to the front to the battery. And then instead of we took out the fuses and added an 80 amp circuit breaker. so that everything's
So
protected.
we can go in the engine bay and we'll show that. And that's something
Yep.
you could reset very simply.
Correct.
Instead of having a fuse in there,
Correct.
you would just see the open circuit breaker and you could close that again.
Correct.
So pretty straightforward. As far as assembly goes and hardware and all that kind of stuff, pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah, no,
That's cool.
Very well thought out kit.
So we've got, just so we see how this is laid out here, the air compressor is actually kind of half inside the gate.
Correct.
And half inside this box. Is that right?
Yep.
This box doubles
Yep, as a shelf.
As a shelf.
And when you open it, you can see these are the bolts that are holding the compressors directly behind that.
Perfect. And so there's enough clearance. This was a concern that we had originally. There's enough clearance between the compressor table and the fridge,
Yes.
right? Like when all this closes, it's a little tight, but there's enough room for all of it.
Yeah, and I think that's the advantage of using all the products from the same company.
Right.
It's all made to work together.
Right. And
is
so
really nice.
how do you turn the compressor on?
So you have the built-in switch right here.
Yep.
Just flip it on. You have dual chucks here, so you have your air from your reel, or you can plug an air hose into this. There's a T in the back that supplies air to both locations.
Cool. Awesome. And so this is a Apex reel. We've used this before on some of our other builds. A super easy way to carry a lot of hose. I mean, you could easily reach all 4 tires. I really like this because it's a minimal amount of fitting. It seems like a lot, like it's kind of popular right now to have like an air chuck at each wheel and this whole like octopus thing. It seems like a lot of concern there. So this makes it all at one spot. And it's very simple. There's no like coil spring, retain or retract or anything. You simply
unlock
it, which is just like a wing nut. And then you can pull as much hose as you want out of this, plug in whatever you need, and then when you're done, you can just wind it back up, which makes it super simple. And then there's this lock so that you would want to lock it again when you're all done. Of course, you want to make sure, as I just did there, I kind of didn't wrap it up real nicely, and so it fit a little tight. So I'm going to go back before we deliver this thing and make sure that all the air hose is stacked nicely there. The light just got wired into that same power source, right?
That's actually separate. So
Separate circuit.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so there's a button right there to turn on and off.
On and off.
And that is direct to the battery.
Correct.
Same with the compressor.
Correct.
So not ignition type.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, that turned out really cool. Let's talk next about the American Adventure Labs floor and their slightly wider slider and fridge. What were your thoughts on all that stuff? How did the install go? Tearing apart the interior. There's also a really slick thing we did with 12-volt outlets. So let's get into that stuff a little bit.
So the first thing we did was we pulled the carpet out, all the interior panels out, and we did 2 layers of Dynamat. We did Dynamat and then Dynaliner on top to quiet down everything back here to keep from rattling.
And maybe some thermal insulation too, because like this 392 has a big giant hot muffler right there. And one thing that we were talking about is that you don't see a bunch of white through all these L-track holes, which is kind of cool. So it's a thermal and acoustic barrier underneath the floor.
Yep.
So super cool there. This is called their slightly wider slider, and using it's pretty straightforward. You just push down on both knobs and it slides out pretty far. We originally talked about mounting it. You want to talk about that a little bit?
So apparently this is the largest fridge that Dometic makes, so there's a little bit of a fitment issue with the seats, the way the seats are angled in the back. So the customer at first wanted to be able to remove the fridge, but in order to do that and to strap it down, the fridge would have had to been in the middle of the tray, and that ended up not working because the fridge is so big physically, like size. So we actually just drilled holes in the floor of the slider, and there's 4 10mm bolts, and they're actually pretty easy to remove if the customer does want to take them out. All he needs is a 10mm ratchet, socket and a ratchet, and just pop the bolts out. But then it's fastened down, and the fridge is forward enough, or rearward enough.
And it looks like here in the tray, it is like as far forward as possible in this tray.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, we've got like maybe 1/8 of an inch between the face and the fridge.
Yes.
One thing that we were talking about earlier, why I like this specific slider, is that it actually still has vertical
rails
or
like a
slides, like a toolbox.
Yeah, it's like a dual slide for a toolbox.
Some of the other ones actually lay those slides flat, and when you do that, they're definitely not as strong because they can bow. So these still are vertical and accommodate this large fridge quite well. We can talk a little bit about power, and we'll get some clips of that. We added a Dometic, they call it a power source or fridge power source, and we flush mounted it into the seat belt. And we ran a completely separate circuit for that as well, right?
Yep.
Cool, so pretty straightforward. Tell us a little bit about the plugs there.
So it's a dual outlet. There's a 12 volt 2-pin outlet and a cigarette lighter outlet.
Okay.
So either way, whatever you need to use, or you can use both of them. The circuit's rated for amperage to use both at the same time if you chose to do that.
So right now we've got the fridge plugged in, which is that 2-pin, and then we have his Dometic battery plugged in there also. And so that works out really nicely.
Yep.
The last thing to talk about, and it's pretty straightforward, is this shelf. This is an adjustable shelf, again, made by American Adventure Labs. And because of the size of the fridge, you've got this thing
all the way up.
All the way up.
It's in the highest position.
So that's awesome. It really adds to the utility of this space. I mean, there's not a ton of space back here, but when you add a secondary layer, you can now fit a lot more stuff.
Sure.
So some totes or tools or whatever you want up there. Let's talk a little bit about the holes in these trays and some of those eyelets. Do we have any of those handy that we can show?
Yeah.
These things are somewhat universal, but we also elected to purchase them from American Adventure Labs as well. They are super convenient because you can mount them just about anywhere that you need a secure place to tie down your cargo. So if you got sleeping bags or whatever you want, you simply move that and you can do it anywhere you want. Right now we've got them utilized to hold the battery down into this storage tray, but as you can see, they are located all over the place here. So a super really handy tool for making sure that you've got a secure place. With the installation, was there anything extra that we opted to do just for fit and finish? Like, I noticed that there's no raw edges on stuff, and that was something we chose to do in-house, right?
Yeah, that was something that I would say was probably my only thing that I wasn't totally happy with the way the finish came. The aluminum is very sharp, and I myself wouldn't want to be like grabbing this or reaching in there and cut yourself. So we actually just took regular automotive door edge guard, and it's something quick and simple. Added it along there. It fits the finish with the black and the aluminum, and I think it helps finish it off, and it's much better for not getting cut.
Yeah. I like how this turned out. You can order this thing in a bunch of different colors, powder coated, raw. We elected, with of course the customer's input, good job Roger, to get all of this stuff in raw aluminum except for the steel pieces, right? There are, during the assembly, there are a couple steel pieces on the tray, right? This piece, there's one behind it, and maybe the brackets that bolt it to the side.
Correct.
Yeah, so all the rest of it is raw aluminum, which I think is cool. Like, it can never scratch. Sure, it may leave some fingerprints here and there, but I think that just adds to that weathered look, which is cool and authentic. I overall love how this turned out. I think this is a great way, and probably the best way if you're going to do any camping or you're going to use your Jeep for maybe some cookouts or whatever you're going to do, some wheeling. What a great way to keep all of this tidy and organized. I mean, this is awesome. So kudos, Todd. I love the install. The client's gonna be picking it up this weekend, and I'm sure he is hyped to see the entire thing. I know he uses it on a lot of camping trips. One little detail that we forgot to talk about is this little hook here. It took us a minute to figure out what that was for, but we said, sure, it could probably be used as a bottle opener, but Todd so wisely suggested that it is for it's
a trash bag holder.
Trash bag holder. So super slick. You just slide the loop in there, and you can cook and do whatever you need to do and make it all real easy. So good job, Todd. What a beautiful Jeep. What a awesome install. And of course, hit us up if you're looking for something like this. We've got a ton of good content all over social media with a bunch of cool stuff that we're doing here every single day in the shop, some suspension, some gear and axles, some cargo utility. So thanks for watching. Have a great week. We'll see you on the next video.